What's up, guys? It is the Line Movement Thursday night pre-kickoff show. We're going to talk Chargers and Raiders, and then we are going to walk through the main slate. I got Joe Holka here. I got Matt LaMarca. If you guys are joining us from Joe Holka's stream, thank you for joining us. Matt LaMarca, what are people betting here? Tell me what the sharps are doing. That's what I want to know.
It's a great question, right? Always got to find out where that sharp money is. Unfortunately, we're not getting much of an answer this week. Right now, the Raiders are getting 52% of the bets and 54% of the dollars. So virtually no discrepancy there. If anything, it looks like sharp money is coming in on the under. That appears to be the preferred side. And that does fit one of my favorite trends here, which is targeting unders in divisional games late in the season. Historically, if you look at divisional games, week 11 or later, the under is 204, 125, and 4 against the spread. Really solid 20% return on investment this year. That includes a 9-5 start to the 2020 season. So divisional unders, that's where I'm going tonight.
Joe, if you had to put your hard-earned Holka bucks on one of these teams, who would you be taking?
I mean, I think it's the Raiders, but I'm currently putting KJ Hill into lineups right now. So what does that tell you about my night so far? You touted me this. I'm just such a sucker for these like $200 guys that you get start popping into my optimals. It's the worst thing ever. But interesting game overall. Both defenses absolutely stink. I think that there's still a chance that there's just so much uncertainty on the Chargers that if you just fall into like what ends up being the right lineup here, you're going to get them a much lower ownership than you would have probably got on some of these guys. So what are we doing? I guess you guys were just talking about your season-long teams before we went live, so you might have some better takes than me. What are we doing with Keenan Allen here, boys?
Yeah, so we were just trying to sift through this. We have a big spot in the FFPC main event where we're currently 11th overall, $500,000 up top. We've been riding this basically a Chargers onslaught. We have Herbert, we have Eckler, we have Keenan Allen, we have Henry. We actually also have Josh Allen. So we're going to sit Herbert for Josh Allen. We're going to play Eckler. And I think the late breaking news, we are going to play Keenan Allen. And I want to hear your thoughts, LaMarca. My thing is, even if we get 70 to 80% of Keenan Allen's normal workload, that's still like, back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 territory. Are you on that line of thinking?
Yeah, I'm not nearly as concerned about Allen as I am about Eckler. Even though we kind of knew Eckler was going to play, that was sort of the report that was going on all day. We didn't know about Keenan. If Keenan's on a snap count, like even if he plays 80%, 70% of the snaps, whatever, he could still get 10 targets in that time frame. Like just because his snaps are limited, you don't get any points at wide receiver for snaps. You get them for catches. So I think that Keenan still is very highly involved in a juicy matchup. Eckler scares me a little bit more because he needs to be on the field, like at his normal rate to be involved. If he is a little bit more limited and we see more touches for, the whole cavalcade of running backs that they have there in Los Angeles, he could be more in danger of losing his fantasy points.
Peter Overzet with breaking news. We got this. Matt Murphy has the scoop in the chat. I just pulled up the Field Yates tweet. This was from 1 minute ago. Take this for what it's worth from the man himself. Keenan Allen just yelled into the camera during pregame,
Lock it in.
Don't sit me.
Don't
sit me. This guy's hamstring, it feels fine, guys. He's telling people don't sit him. I mean, lock and load, right?
Lock it up.
Oh my Lord, boys, I have to literally, I was thinking about not playing him at all, and I might just lock him a captain now. That's some real stuff.
So I think the biggest question here, as I steal the host hat from Peter Overzet.
Please do. I need to relax. I deserve a vacation.
You've had a busy day.
You know what? I'm putting the standing desk down. I'm putting up my feet up.
Respect it.
LaMarca's hosting the show, and I just get to chill.
It's gonna drive the bus.
So I think the bigger question here, right, is how do we approach the Raiders? Because they're a team that the running game and the passing game are pretty negatively correlated, as is the case with most teams, right? But the Raiders don't have the kind of offense where they can support a ton of different fantasy options. So if you look at Derek Carr and Darren Waller, those two players extremely positively correlated. In games when the passing goes off, both of those guys typically eat. Both are extremely negatively correlated with Josh Jacobs. In games where Jacobs goes off, the passing attack suffers because this team's only going to put up so many points. So, do we like Jacobs or do we prefer the passing attack tonight?
I think go ahead, Pete, but I think I prefer the passing game.
I do too. I always just like Josh Jacobs is just so fragile with his role. Like we know Gruden wants to run, and if they get the positive game script, yeah, they'll use him. But man, I just feel like the Chargers can put up points quickly. In the second the Raiders are down, they'll just put in Booker or Rashard. Like they don't even care. They'll just pull Josh Jacobs off the field. So at that point, you're just basically drawing dead to a goal line touchdown. So to me, that kind of play is fine when it's not popular. But if Josh Jacobs is going to be the most popular captain, like to me, that's just an auto fade. Knowing,
Yeah, is that where we're at?
Mhm.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it was going to be him and Eckler, but my just inclination is with the Jay Glazer report about Eckler being on a snap count that Josh Jacobs might become the most popular captain play tonight.
I guess it does make sense with the Raiders being favored. Like, I think when you look at these two teams, your natural inclination is to go towards the Chargers. Like they just have so many better players for fantasy, but the Raiders are favored. So that's still going to drive ownership a little bit.
You know
LaMarca,
what I think this? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was just saying, I have a question for you guys. If Eckler is limited and we feel like that's something that like is legitimately a concern here, who is the guy that benefits more? Is it Joshua Kelly at that point? Because then his projections are completely out of whack across the industry right now.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly was on the field. He didn't play last week. He was on the field for 3 snaps the week prior. I think it's probably Kalen Ballage. I don't know what it is about that guy. Coaches just seem to like him. He played more than Josh Jackson last week when he returned from injury. So I still think Ballage is the number 2 there. But honestly, who knows? Who knows what Anthony Lynn is feeling today?
Yeah. Man, it is it's tricky. It's tricky here. So, Joe, have you built your second lineup?
Well, I'm building lineups right now, but I'm also currently trying to decide if I want to pivot to more Keenan Allen because I had like none before. So I'm messing around with some Kalen Ballage. I don't know. It's thin right now, boys. So how much time do I got until lock? 5 minutes? Too much
You
time.
got about 7 minutes. Yeah, but this is Joe. When was the lineup that won? $59,000. What time was that made?
I don't know. The last lineup was submitted like 10 seconds before lock, something like that. That's what I normally do.
Wow, look at that. Joe, quick on the trigger finger there, just sneaking it in.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I tried to switch it to something else too and just didn't get it in time. So there you go.
LaMarca,
can I just say your hair is wild today? You look like Ace Ventura.
Mine?
It's all over the place.
Do you want to know why? I have shoveling snow hair. So I have the hat. I'm out there shoveling snow. LaMarca, are you still in New York?
Yep.
Yeah. Did you guys get hit today?
Not nearly as bad as other places.
Yeah.
But we had maybe like half a foot of the wet, heavy snow,
See, ours, we got a ton. We got like 16 inches, but it was fluffy. It was manageable. So anyways, I've been out there, working hard, and I'm sitting here refreshing Bitcoin, and I'm like, I'm rich. I'm just absolutely rich, and yet I'm out here shoveling snow. I'm like, can I get a 14-year-old boy to come and shovel my driveway? Why am I doing this right now when Bitcoin is mooning, LaMarca?
That's a question you're going to have to answer.
Can we get a Bitcoin thumbnail and get this Zeke thumbnail out of here for the love of God?
Seriously, Joe Holka was like, I have to have Ezekiel Elliott on the thumbnail.
Well, we didn't have Pollard.
This
is the thing that we had to do it. We have to talk about Pollard at some point today, right? So that was the easiest way to bring it up without actually like going in and digging out a new photo when I'm trying to build lineups with 4 minutes before lock, man. What do you want from me?
Let's get this back because we do have 5 more minutes till lock. And Mikey Boy G in the chat earlier, he wants to know, who does LaMarca have at captain tonight? Good call on Akers last week.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. I thought that was like the Stone Nuts play last week. I don't see a similar play tonight. I initially, I guess, like most of the fish, had Josh Jacobs, but after talking to these guys, I think I'm going to pivot to Darren Waller more than likely.
That makes sense. And you were going for a Q last week? Did you?
I was going for a Q. and I bricked. But
You bricked with
it
an
happened.
Akers captain. What happened, man?
I told you guys, Akers was more popular than you believed. He was like 12% owned at captain in the queue, and I didn't have Goff or the defense, who ended up being important players.
This is why I have for Showdown I MME, because every play changes it. Like sweating a single lineup in Showdown is so agonizing. Unless you're Joe Hoka and you just win 59,000 and it's all peaches.
I mean, I did need two
that
lineups to do it.
That lineup had to shoot up like a rocket ship in the third quarter.
Well, I mean, it doesn't take much to shoot up a rocket ship from nothing. It was like the first half of punts, and I had all the Washington, like the only touchdown of the first half, basically. So I was actually like pretty ahead from like something when like nothing happened except for the defenses. But then, yeah, basically just got every touchdown the rest of the way, man. Sometimes you run good, and sometimes you're 3 minutes before lock and still have no third lineup. So that's where we're at.
Like 2 tweets back to back, and I can't tell if there's like an inside joke I'm missing. 2 people said, "Is it bad my Showdown lineups haven't changed at all since yesterday? It's bad, isn't it?" And then someone said, "Is it bad my Showdown lineups haven't changed since when I set them yesterday? It's bad, isn't it? Am I the dead money?" 2 completely different people
Said the same thing.
within seconds of each other. Did I miss like a global bit that everyone's in on? Or maybe everyone just has this sentiment of they set their lineups assuming Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were going to be playing. Then everyone thought today they weren't going to be playing. And now because they are playing again, everyone's just letting it ride. Is that what's happening?
Sounds like
Yeah,
it.
I think what you're not taking into account is the fact that this slate has been flipped on its head.
No, it hasn't. This is what happened. I'm trying to explain this.
It
was a normal slate, and then it was flipped on its head, and it got flipped again, and now we're back to normal. We're right side up, LaMarca.
2 flips don't necessarily equal a no flip.
I'm just so scared to play.
I learned that in my
now.
Zen class, Pete.
LaMarca, when was the last time you meditated?
Meditated? Never.
Never?
Never.
When is the last time you prayed?
Prayed? Communion, probably.
When is the last time that you silently reflected on what you're doing with your life?
Oh, every night before I fall asleep.
All right,
guys. This is what I'll do. I will take one more question on this slate for those of you who are doing the Joe Holka style build and making a final tweak.
Sure.
Get a question. We will answer that final question here with 2 minutes until lock. First one in the chat, we answer that question. Joe Holka, we got to get some of that magic tonight. We need another $59,000 score.
Yeah, I'm still tinkering my lineup, so not great, guys. I'm currently moving away from my what was that super thin play you had for us, Pete? I don't have him anymore.
KJ Hill? That was your guy.
That was my guy. Yeah, he's no longer my guy.
You're now turning into the chalk donkey that you are at your heart.
I have 2 Keenan Allen captains. Does that make me a chalk donkey?
No, I don't think he's going to be a popular captain after all this.
Yeah, me either.
I'm waiting for a question. The chat's catching up.
Oh yeah, it's way on delay today. I don't know what's going on with YouTube. Ooh, I only have 1 Waller team. That seems scary.
Okay, here's Willis. I guess this is the question. I'm playing Witten at captain. Is that bad? Yes, that's bad,
Jason
Willis.
Witten?
What, do you know another Witten? It was funny.
No, I guess not.
I was looking at the Raiders projections, and they have like 4 tight ends projecting for points. Because you got Waller, you got Witten, you got Foster Moreau, you got a guy named Steven Anderson. I mean, it's like Tennessee Titans level tight end usage. Submit it?
Just submitted my lineups. I got them in.
All right, we're locked. It means we can officially move on.
Good luck tonight, everybody.
I mean, just where else are you going to get that kind of level Thursday night football analysis?
I swear to God, if someone came in here and just started to troll us and said that Keenan Allen thing, it wasn't actually true, I'm going to lose my mind.
Wait, Tony A said, I heard Dean say that today this slate is flipped on its head. Is that Dean from Roto Grinders, who I'm having on my show tomorrow? Is he copying my phrases and not sending me royalties?
I don't think anyone's allowed to say that. I've never made a thumbnail that said flipped on its head before and not giving you any credit.
All right. Let's walk through this main slate, guys. Let's take a little stroll. Everyone toss on their New Balances, throw on their fanny packs.
Comfy.
We're about to take a nice leisurely stroll through the Week 15 main slate. Let's start here. Wait, real quick, because this is how bad we are at preparing for the show. Are we doing the Saturday games?
No.
I have not prepared at all for Saturday.
No chance.
Okay.
I couldn't even tell you who's playing.
But
we're deep in the main slate though, for the record. This is championship week for the DraftKings live final. Like I don't think I've ever been this prepared for this specific show if we talk main slate. Saturday, I have no idea, but can we please talk main slate?
Yes, we are going to talk main slate. If you want to play Saturday, on behalf of all of us, just go screw yourselves. What we do here is we talk about the main slate. No, but that is what we are going to do right now. We are going to talk about the main slate. We are going to zoom right past the Saturday games. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts home versus the Houston Texans. What do I say every week, LaMarca? The Sharps are betting the Colts. Are they balking at these 7.5 points finally?
They are off the Colts this week. They are on the Texans. This seems like a pretty good spot if you're like a trends number better. So right now, Indy getting 70% of the spread bets. Not a surprise there, but only 58% of the dollars. So the Texans definitely with a little bit of a sharp lean there. And just with how bad they were last week, it is historically a very good idea to buy low on teams like that. I won't bore you with the numbers, but just trust me when I say that if a team scores less than 10 points, you should probably consider targeting them the following week unless they're the New York Jets.
All right, Joe. In this game, it looks like we might get Brandon Cooks back. We got Jonathan Taylor, one of these rookie breakouts happening, but people otherwise still don't want to mess with these Colts. It's hard to know. I'm kind of surprised that T.Y. Hilton's ownership isn't higher. Like both Osimo and ETR have it at 7% right now. I thought he was going to be chalk early in the week. Please don't make me play T.Y. Hilton, Joe.
Are you trying to get me to like make like a strong take in favor of T.Y. Hilton right now?
No, I just thought he would be 30% owned and I wouldn't have to play him. Like
Because he's playing Houston?
He's on a heater. We got the narrative. He's 5,500 and no one's playing him. They're going to make me play T.Y. Hilton.
Man, I actually like don't really like this game too much. Like 5,500 for him, I understand. I mean, he's still if you're just looking at straight projection, he's popping. He's got kind of a different role. I asked Harmon about Hilton this week just because I care more about what he says about wide receivers than probably 99% of Twitter. So I think the reason he's seeing these type of targets is he's kind of seen a different role over the last like few weeks in general. So I think I still like would prefer to just play Michael Pittman with like underneath type of touches from Phillip Rivers. But now the fact that like T.Y. Hilton is looking at what, like 5 to 8%, I have a little bit more interest because like you, I thought he'd be closer to like that 15% range and I could just ignore him. Now I don't know if I could ignore him, but I'm still trying to figure out what to do with Jonathan Taylor at 7,200. It just seems like a tough price tag for him, but like it's probably where he should have been over these last couple weeks anyway. LaMarca, what do you think about TY, but also this price tag for Jonathan Taylor?
Well, I think that Taylor is why Hilton is not so popular, right?
Okay.
People don't want to stack the wide receiver and the running back together necessarily, and I do think that Taylor is going to be very popular against the Texans. He is starting to cook, guys. Like he has been very good the last couple of weeks. That includes, dropping 22.5 DK points on the Texans. My thing, though, is that I just don't want to be on the Colts side this week. Like, if the Colts aren't going to cover, I don't think that it's going to be like a shootout type game where the Texans keep it close. I think it's going to be an ugly type game where there's not a ton of scoring. So I think that the Colts have one eye on their matchup next week with the Steelers. That is a much bigger, test for them than facing a 4-9 Texan squad who they just beat 2 weeks ago. So I don't think we get the A performance here from the Colts. Like maybe that's narrative street, but I do believe that look ahead spots are a real thing. And I think that the Colts are in that spot this week.
All right, let's move on to this Tennessee-Detroit game. The Titans are 11-point home favorites here. It doesn't seem like Matthew Stafford is going to play. It looks like we're going to get Chase Daniel here. It is D. Hember. The big dog is projecting just massively everywhere you look. Like even the people who stubbornly don't want to play Derrick Henry are looking at this projection and are like, okay, I probably have to play Derrick Henry. So LaMarca, first off, tell us where the bettors are going in this direction. Are there any Chase Daniel sharps out there?
No. If anything, the Sharps have taken Tennessee pretty aggressively. Titans are 59% of the tickets, but 78% of the money. So I do think a lot of that came early in the week. You know, the Sharps kind of put their hard hats on. They go to work. They realize that there's a chance that Matt Stafford is not going to play in this game. So they while
Someone
they
say
can.
hard hat. Sorry,
Yeah, baby, that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, they're on Tennessee. Pete, can I talk about my best ball team for like 15 seconds?
Yeah, if you want to get arrested, go for it.
I forgot. I did like 6 of those underdog the bubble best ball
Yeah.
teams. And I just randomly checked the other day and I got a team into the semifinals. And I do not have Derrick Henry,
Me
but
either.
8 of the 12 teams that are in my little league have Derrick Henry. So the question is, how bad is he going to body bag me this week, guys?
Derrick
First quarter,
Henry,
second quarter.
he is Joe. I mean, here's the thing. I'm kind of shocked. Like right now, I'm looking at ownership. It looks like he's going to come in the 20 to 25% range. That like puts him into the territory where even I have to be like, yeah, I got to have some Derrick Henry. If he was in the 40% range, I'm like, all right, just fade him, whatever. But
Dude.
I'm intrigued right now.
Dude, my anti Derrick Henry because he doesn't catch passes brand is just an absolute shambles. Like I've cracked, man. Like this guy is so fun to watch. It's fun to have Derrick Henry on your lineup and just watch him run for 200 yards every game. Like he's legitimately going for records in this spot. The coaches don't care. They're gonna let him do it. Detroit stinks, man. So like I was basically.
So
they're so bad. So on one of my many segments this week with Tagliere, he was mentioning that like I love this analogy that he made. He's like, you know, when you're driving to work and you've got like 10 stoplights to get through, and just like that one day a month you like literally catch like 9 green lights. That's Detroit, but Detroit is when you catch 10 green lights. You know what I mean? It's literally that bad. So Derrick Henry is just going to absolutely smash in this spot. He's like the scariest fade on the slate, like maybe Tyreek Hill, but I don't know. I think that the difference between Derrick Henry now and last year in some ways is that there was more options at the top that could kind of like make that pass catching running back like I guess a little bit more palatable. So we had CMC, we had Kamara, we had Zeke. Now we've got Dalvin. I mean, it's not a great matchup. He's probably still a pretty good play, but I don't know if the ownership gap is big enough to make me fade the big dog completely. So I'm still working through it, but as of right now, I'm pretty bullish overall. It's hard not to be.
Yeah, and on the Lions side here, none of these guys seem like they are going to catch a ton of ownership. I mean, TJ Hawkinson has been kind of a low-key monster without Galladay. He had 11 targets last week. Marvin Jones also continues to see a huge air yard share, huge target share. We got DeAndre Swift, a guy who I really wanted to tout in the injury return model, but I was so spooked by some of those quotes about the concussion. He comes back and is getting worked in like pretty nicely. Had 6 high value touches. He was only playing like 50% of the snaps, but kind of makes sense working him back in. LaMarca, do you have any love for these Lions on a bring back?
I mean, it's not the worst hold your nose garbage stack that I can think of. Like I continue to think that Tennessee's defense is one of the worst in the league. Without Jadeveon Clowney, they're dead last in adjusted sack rate. So like you can take a quarterback like Chase Daniel, and if you don't pressure him, he can do some things, right? Like that's the biggest difference between backup quarterbacks and starting quarterbacks, in my opinion, is like the ability to cope with a pass rush. And I just think Daniel will have time here. I just don't know who you target him with. Maybe Marvin Jones, but like we don't know how he's going to throw the ball. Maybe he leans on Hawkinson. Maybe it's a lot of check downs. It's kind of a little bit more uncertain of a situation than I like to go after.
That makes sense. Let's move on to this Tampa Bay Atlanta game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 6-point home favorites to the what I assume is going to be Julio Jones-less Atlanta Falcons. What are the bettors doing with this one, Matt?
Hammering Tampa Bay. Just so much Tampa money to start the week. Only 55% of the bets, but 89% of the dollars. This number opened up at either 3.5 or 4. It's now up to 6. I think it goes higher before kickoff. I continue to be bullish on Tampa Bay long term. I still think they're one of the better teams in the NFC, and Atlanta's done, right? They have nothing to play for at this point. There's no incentive for them to bring Julio Jones back. I even saw Calvin Ridley started the week on the injury report. Like, it wouldn't shock me if this was just a mail it in end of the season for the Falcons. So I don't typically like to bet, road favorites of around a touchdown, but I think Tampa Bay is worth an exception here.
Yeah, Holka, it looks like, Leonard Fournette appears to be opening up as kind of the chalk value running back play. It's this weird situation where Leonard Fournette's a healthy scratch last week, and now Ronald Jones is going to be out. He had the finger injury and getting placed on the COVID list. And now Leonard Fournette is going to be activated and being the bell cow, despite being inactive and having LaShawn McCoy and the rookie Keyshawn Vaughn play ahead of him. Where are you at on Leonard Fournette running back chalk?
Dude, I might full fade. Is that crazy? I don't think he's a good play at all. I think there's plenty of guys down there that are even just a little bit more expensive that I have a lot more interest in. Like, when has the Leonard Fournette chalk week ever worked out? Like, literally, even when he was getting all that work with Jacksonville, it seemed like he's just not very good. Guy's got hands like feet, literally. So I don't know. I'm not really in on the Leonard Fournette thing, especially at chalk. I think there's some better plays down there. I think the only guy that I'm super bullish on in this game is Calvin Ridley. I understand that his price is 8,200, but in this spot without Julio, Ridley's at a 28% target share without Julio on the field compared to a 6% target share with him on the field. So I still think that he's going to get enough volume to get there. He's just had so much red zone involvement as a whole that he's really hard to ignore at this point. So I think in this spot where we've seen this Tampa Bay team really just do really well in the beginning of the year, but then they've kind of dropped off a little bit and they've given up some really big games through the air. So I think it's a spot where I don't have a ton of interest overall because of how wide the target share is, widespread the target share is on the Tampa Bay side. So I'm kind of leaning towards just not having much of this game overall, but I'm not sure exactly. Where are you at on the Fournette thing, Pete?
Yeah, I have such a bias against Fournette here, and I think at chalk here, I don't think I'm going to have much Leonard Fournette. And to me, I also think I know Arians has come out and said, Fournette is going to be our guy. I still think it could be kind of like a gross three-way split where you see McCoy getting the pass down stuff where the interesting thing is they seem to have these clear roles for these guys, and they now want Leonard Fournette to step in as the early down grinder for Ronald Jones. Well, Ronald Jones is a far better runner than Leonard Fournette. Where we were vaguely excited about Leonard Fournette earlier in the season was if he was going to catch passes, the Tom Brady, James White checkdowns. But if you're just now having LaShawn McCoy come in there and get the checkdowns, or maybe Keyshawn Vaughn steals a few, and you're just telling me we're going to ram Leonard Fournette 2 yards in a cloud of dust into the Falcons run D, who Tony A points out in the chat is actually pretty decent. Like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. LaMarca, you have a final take here? Any ancillary Bucks pass catchers you might like?
No, I just want to hammer home the point of don't play Leonard Fournette. Like, Ronald Jones is so much better than Leonard Fournette that the Bucks decided, like, nah, we won't dress him. And now everybody's going to flock to that dude. That seems like pretty bad process. I mean, Fournette's at 3.9 yards per carry on the season. Like, maybe he can get you 80 yards and a touchdown, but I just don't see like the smash ceiling that warrants him being mega chalk,
Yeah, I am completely with you. No one needs to twist my arm to fade Lenny Fournette. Let's move on to this New England Miami game. Obviously, a lot of kind of injury news and notes to keep tabs on with the Dolphins, especially Miami 2-point home favorites to New England here. Very low total, 41.5. Probably not a great DFS game, but what are the bettors doing here?
Yeah, this game is really interesting. I think it's probably the most interesting game of the week from a betting perspective. The line is all over the place. You can find it as high as Dolphins -2. You can find it as low as a pick 'em, depending on where you're looking. And it's kind of the battle of conflicting narratives, right? Like on one hand, you've got Bill Belichick against the rookie quarterbacks. I believe he's 21-5 straight up as Patriots head coach against rookie quarterbacks. So he historically thrives in those matchups. Plus, now we're giving him an extra 4 days to prepare since they're coming off of a bye. But then on the other hand, you have this narrative of Tampa Bay can't go and play in Miami, right? They're 2-5-1 against the spread in their last 8 trips to Miami. And that was back when the Patriots were actually a good football team. Now they stink. So which narrative wins out? I don't know. I tend to back the Patriots here. The one thing is I was kind of expecting Mike Gesicki to be out of the lineup. He returned to practice today on a limited basis. We'll see what that means for his status, but it's starting to look like he's in the lineup, and he has become like a pretty important piece of their offense over the last couple of weeks. So, in other words, there's a lot of stuff to digest in this game. The sharps seem to be split here. I mean, Miami has a slight edge in tickets and a slight edge in dollars at the moment, but the line keeps going down. So all of that is very confusing. It's a lot to digest. And I wish you all the best of luck in figuring out that situation.
Yeah, Joe, if someone has a hunch on this game for DFS, you can get that play in at extremely low ownership. I mean, I think the only guy here that's going to maybe be over 10% will be Lynn Bowden Jr. He had 8 targets last week. They were using him, or 9 targets, using him in very creative ways, looked very explosive in space, making guys miss. Do you have any interest in pieces in this game?
Not really. I'm going to go pour another glass. I'll let you guys take that one from here. Hopefully I come back and we're talking about a real game.
Wow, that's such a Peter move to leave midstream to go get more alcohol. Look at that. Anything we want to say to talk shit about Joe Holka while he's gone, Matt?
I love Joe. He's a great boss. He always does me right.
Oh, get out of here, dude.
The one thing I will say about Lynn Bowden is all of that last week was out of pure necessity, right? Like Devontae Parker and Jakeem Grant both left the game early. Mike Gesicki didn't finish the game. They had like no active running backs on their roster. So I think Lynn Bowden is a massive trap this week if you play him. Like maybe he gets a couple of passes, he plays some in the slot, but I think that last week was just he was the only healthy body still on the field for the team.
I mean, I'm kind of with you. I also am kind of a believer in, playmakers making plays and getting, momentum and teams getting them more touches after they've flashed. And like the Dolphins clearly have a good eval on Bowden. I mean, they traded for him at
the guy's been on their roster for 16 weeks. I just used him.
But they've had a ton of, first of all, Bowden got like kicked out of Raiders camp because he was like punching people and stuff. So like, I don't know. He's probably a bad apple, but clearly very talented. Here's where I'm with you. Like everything, it's all ownership dependent, right? I agree with you. If Bowden is chalk, I don't want to touch him. If he comes under 10%, I think Bowden will be a pretty decent salary relief play. I guess we'll have to see how that shakes out. Joe Holka is back, ready to get absolutely loaded on this live stream. Let's move on to Washington hosting Seattle. I feel like I play Russell Wilson every week. They are 5-point road favorites, 44.5 over under. LaMarca. The bettors seem to normally respect this Washington D line. Are they doing that here?
Nope. Seattle is getting 86% of the dollars to start the week on just 49% of the bets. So that's a monster differential. I think that the public is a little bit more bullish on Washington because they just beat the 49ers, right? They're back in first place in the NFC East, but that win last week was a complete fraud. The Washington team had 193 yards of total offense. They led up 344 yards of offense, but they managed to win because they scored a defensive touchdown. This week, they are facing a much more potent offensive team with Seattle. So I don't think that they can win this game with their defense. And if they're forced to win it with their offense, I just don't feel comfortable about their chances doing it. One of the like sneakiest storylines, I guess it's not even that sneaky, but one of the most important developments over the second half of the season is Seattle's defense has started playing really well. They're allowing like 15 points per game over their last 5 games, something like that. So I think that Seattle puts the clamps down on Washington here, and they don't really even need to score all that much to ultimately cover the spread.
Joe, I'm sitting here looking at the ownership again. I just like whenever I see DK Metcalf
I
at
knew
like
you were gonna
sub
say that.
10%, I'm just like, what are you people doing? I
Dude.
mean, like he was getting absolutely fed early on in that game, and they didn't need to put the pedal on the gas. I mean, Russell Wilson had 27 attempts, only threw for 206 yards. They didn't need to do it. I actually think this Washington team is far more equipped to push the Seahawks than the Jets, who are not even trying to win. Like, at least Washington will try to push the ball down the field. Am I just a donkey for continuing to triple, quadruple down on DK Metcalf and the Seahawks?
No, dude, I was gonna tee you up for it because I think he's a sick play. Because like if he's sitting there at like 9 to 10% ownership roughly, like because of the price tag, like man, literally he's gonna be like. I know we don't look a lot at the wide receiver cornerback stuff, but something kind of struck me earlier this week. Someone was talking about Kendall Fuller, guy's 5'11", gonna try and like literally defend DK Metcalf. That is just not going to go well. Even if he ends up being on the other side with like Darby over there, like he gives up so much over the top that like there's literally no way they can stop DK Metcalf. So like I don't understand why people aren't talking about him. Is it because everyone's like super down on Russ? Like this feels like the play that people are going to galaxy brain themselves into and for like the live final, but in like regular contests, like he's going to be lower than he should be.
Yeah, I definitely like DK. It seems like McLaurin's going to get a little bit of ownership, man. I mean, he was another guy where if he's like sub 10%, I'm like, man, play a little DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, mini correlation. We're off to the races here. LaMarca, any other plays in this game that are intriguing to you?
I like McLaurin much more than DK, as crazy as that sounds.
In a
Uh,
vacuum?
Awful.
this week, not in
No,
a
but I mean,
vacuum.
like, let's assume similar ownership. But you're saying,
With
like,
Haskins?
regardless of price, you prefer McLaurin?
I do.
You're drunk.
I'm not.
Joe and
I'm
I are the ones
stone sober.
drinking, and you're drunk.
Damn.
DK Metcalf, like as much as I love the dude, 8,600 is a pretty prohibitive price tag. Like, and the reason why he's going to have less ownership is because he's a worse play than Tyreek Hill, and he's a worse play than Calvin Ridley, who are sandwiched right around him. So I think there's a reason why he's going to be sub 10%. And if he body bags me, he body bags me. It happens. I think that
You
McLaurin, it's just a much more desperate situation for Washington. They have nobody else.
you said you don't pray. You better start praying if you're fading DK Metcalf this week, brother.
So you're by default, you're going to be light just in general on your life roll because of Derrick Henry. So that's tough already. Now you want to double down and be light on DK Metcalf, man? That's tough.
That's right.
I'm praying for you. If you're not praying for yourself, I'm praying for you.
Yeah, I'm praying for you. I'm meditating for you. I'm clutching my rosary beads for you. I'm doing everything for you, bro.
Please God, no Josh Jacobs here.
Yeah, something everyone's saying that Derek Carr has a groin injury right now. Doesn't sound
Fantastic.
great. Fantastic. Oh, so now not
That
only
was a
do you hate DK
sarcastic
Metcalf,
fantastic.
okay, better be. I'd hate to find out that you root for injuries.
Never. I got way too much pride for that, Pete.
Okay. All right, let's move on to this Minnesota Chicago game. Minnesota hosting Chicago, 3-point home faves, 47 over under. What are we doing here, Matt?
The Bears. We're taking the Bears. This is a big sharps versus square spot. Unsurprisingly, the public loves Minnesota, right? They love Dalvin Cook. They love Justin Jefferson. They love Adam Thielen. They hate Mitch Trubisky. You know, these two teams played just a couple of weeks ago, and Minnesota won in Chicago. So it's like all systems go Minnesota. But the Sharps just pounding Chicago. They're getting 80% of the dollars. That's caused the spread to drop from 3.5 to 3. There's probably still a couple 3.5s floating around out there in the industry somewhere. But yeah, I hate to be the Mitch Trubisky like fanboy, I don't like that this is the role that I've grown into, but he is just so much better than Nick Foles. It's unbelievable. And the last 2 times these 2 teams played, Foles has been under center. The Bears offense is going to move the ball against Minnesota, especially if Eric Kendricks is out once again. He makes a huge difference at linebacker. He's one of the best cover linebackers in the league, number 2 according to Pro Football Focus. So I just think that this is a great spot to target Chicago. I'm in on the Bears for what feels like the 100th time this season.
All right, Joe, boots on the ground here. What are we doing with the Vikings? It seems like Dalvin and Henry are going to be fairly similarly owned, although I could see the Henry steam late in the week pushing Dalvin down a bit.
Yeah, just think of it this way. The last time that Dalvin played against the Chicago Bears, he had 34 touches for 96 yards and no touchdowns. So 15 points on 34 touches. Like, we're not big matchup guys, especially at running back. We care about the volume, but that's a pretty tough scene overall. I mean, at some point he's probably going to break down with getting 35 touches a game. I would have some interest in this play if he wasn't so close to ownership in Derrick Henry. So I think that I agree with you that maybe this is a little bit tighter than it ends up being when it's all said and done. But I would rather play the big dog at this price, as scary as that is.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is it seems like Alexander Mattison is going to be back this week too. That was one thing that was really boosting Cook. Even I know it sounds like not a lot, but just even giving him, 2 to 4 extra touches that aren't getting stolen by Alexander Mattison pretty meaningfully affects his projection. So I think that's interesting. We do have another week here where Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen don't appear to be majorly owned. And man, Justin Jefferson is dude is so freaking good, man. Like, so good. LaMarca, I mean, we can play Justin Jefferson here at 7,300 and 10% ownership, right?
100% you can. The Bears struggle with the Jefferson type receivers of the world. Jefferson torched them the first time that they played, 8 catches for $135. I really like Jefferson. I honestly kind of don't hate this game in general. Like, I think my favorite vomit stack of the week is Trubisky with Allen Robinson and Cole Kmet, and then run it back with Jefferson.
Look at that. You've thought this one out. You've already hand built a few of these lineups. I can tell.
Well, I mean, you can't beat the 3K tight end who's gotten 7 targets the past 2 weeks. 7 targets in each week, not 7 targets total.
Real quick, Joe, before we move on, are you eating the David Montgomery chalk here? The price continues to rise each week, and yet he continues to ball out each week.
Yeah, I like Montgomery quite a bit. I think that part of the reason that his price is where it's at isn't even necessarily the volume, but it's the fact that he has 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. So that scares me a little bit that maybe the price is moving for that reason, not necessarily just because he's been absolutely shredding. He's getting. It's crazy to say this, but like, he has these games with like 11 attempts, but then has like 5 targets through the air. It's like Alvin Kamara type of usage in the terms of like, just he can be used that much in the air. He's going to be valuable on DraftKings for sure. The price with like Montgomery and just like in general some of these guys that are finally getting moved up a little bit scares me, but I don't know. Running back as a whole feels really weak this slate overall. So like, I think this is one that, like, if you're hand building some teams, you're probably going to end up with more wide receivers in the flex than you normally do. These are always kind of scary slates for me overall.
Yeah, that one's going to be interesting. The Montgomery one, I feel like a broken record saying this, but this is one of the hard things about doing shows on, Thursday, the way I play. I mean, like, the ownership is going to determine it so much. Like, I'm just never going to be a guy who eats, David Montgomery chalk. Like, if you want to play devil's advocate against him, he had that 80-yard touchdown early. And I know I don't want to be in the business of, if you take away the 80-yard touchdown, blah, 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 like, he earned that, but he did only have 33 yards on his other 10 carries. Like, I still think David Montgomery is who we think he is. But I'm willing to play him if he's not super popular. If we see him creep up back to the 20-25% range at $7,000 tag, I'm probably off him. So definitely keeping tabs on that. Let's move over to this Baltimore-Jacksonville game. Baltimore hosting, 13-point favorites here. Does anyone think Jacksonville can keep this one close?
Yeah, a lot of people, believe it or not. 63% of the bets, 65% of the dollars landing on the Jaguars. I kind of get it. It's a spot where Baltimore could definitely have a little bit of a letdown game. Like they just came back with this emotional, must needed win last week against a huge division rival. They can sort of take their foot off the gas a little bit. Lamar Jackson was incredible, came back from the toilet to lead his team to a W, and now they get the lowly Jaguars. Like, it's only natural to kind of let your guard down a little bit there. And Jacksonville has Gardner Minshew back, which he's clearly their best quarterback at this point. So if he's healthy, he should 100% be starting. That's not even a question for me. I just am worried that Baltimore can play their C- game here and still cover. Like, Jacksonville just cannot stop the run. I mean, Derrick Henry picked up 215 yards in essentially 3 quarters against them last week. And now they're going to have to face Lamar Jackson and arguably the best rushing team in all of football. Like, it could get real ugly real fast. So I'm not as bullish as the rest of the sharps and general public appears to be, but I do understand why Jacksonville has been a popular pick.
And Joe, I think a couple of the interesting things to me here for DFS is the Ravens have finally phased out Mark Ingram. They have kind of condensed this to a 2 running back backfield with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Justice Hill is getting some pass snaps, but it's mainly these 2 guys now. And then on the other side of the ball, we have all of these Jags wide receivers who had a ton of air yards: Keely Cole, Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark. There is some intrigue to me in this game. Are you on board with maybe picking some spots here?
Yeah, I think Chark's interesting. I think that I prefer him with Minshew back there. At least we've seen them have some success before. Tough air yard situation overall across the board. I think that it's an interesting time to go after Lamar in general. We always like to target these running quarterbacks against man coverage heavy teams. Jaguars 6th most man coverage in the NFL. The problem is Lamar hasn't been especially efficient against man coverage, at least dating back to 2019. So he has just a 6.9 yards per attempt in those spots. I guess if you do want to go that route, I'm still fine with Mark Andrews at that price. He was the leading receiver on this team against that type of coverage this year. Does have 6 touchdowns against man coverage as well. Marquis Brown has really struggled against man coverage, but do we get Marquis Brown this game? He's on the COVID list, right? Do we have anything in terms of news on that yet, guys?
Yeah, we're not really going to know until
if he gets a positive
Saturday
test, he's
night,
out.
Monday
If he doesn't get a positive test, there's a chance he could play.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Someone in the chat says, would you play Gus Edwards? And one reason I think it's fairly interesting is because he's 4,400. So anyone who's going in that running back range is probably going to play Fournette. And I mean, Edwards has like a pretty sick role right now by the goal line. Yes, his touches aren't massive, but last week, 7 carries, 49 yards, 2 touchdowns. He even caught a pass for as well. So I think Gus Edwards might be one of those like sick contrarian tournament pivots here. If you look at the spread and he's going to be the hammer back without Mark Ingram, I mean, his touchdown equity alone is pretty sick in this game.
That's a tough one.
Saying,
ooh, see, I'm over here like, ooh.
Am I the only one that doesn't have any interest in that one whatsoever?
That's pretty sexy. I mean, no Mark Ingram. If you think this game turns into a blowout, he could get 15 carries. And if he gets 15 carries, he could get 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
This is what I'll say. In a vacuum, I'm not like super stoked about Gus Edwards, but if you make lineups and you have Leonard Fournette in them, just swap in Gus Edwards for Leonard Fournette, and that lineup is a lot better.
Dude, I strongly prefer Fournette
too. I don't think Dobbins is going to be that popular.
I don't mind Dobbins. I think Gus is gross.
I like them both. Stack them in the same lineup.
Put them
don't
in
do
there.
that.
Jam them in. Man, this
All
is
right,
tough.
let's move on here to what do we got here? Now we're to the 4 p.m. games. So we have Arizona.
Don't forget about we've got that sneaky 1 o'clock flexed out game, 49ers at Dallas.
Oh my goodness. You are always helping me, LaMarca. My stuff I'm looking at is always throwing me off here. All right. San Francisco at Dallas. Lots of value in this game. Lots of backup quarterbacks in this game. What are people doing with it?
Man, I love San Francisco this week. Love, love, love. Might be my favorite bet of the week. They're popular, right? They're getting 64% of the bets, but they're still getting a ton of sharp love, 96% of the spread dollars. That's forced this spread up to 3, but I still think that this is a very playable number. I mentioned earlier, San Francisco, very deceptive loss last week. They were better than Washington. They deserve to beat Washington. Nick Mullins got a little bit turnover happy, which happens with Nick Mullins, but in the long run, San Francisco is supposed to win that game more than they lose it. Then you look at Dallas last week. They're coming off of a comfortable 30-7 win, but anybody who watched that game knows that final scoreline is incredibly deceptive. I've been making fun of Brandon Allen for 3 weeks now on how bad he has made this Cincinnati offense. They were moving the ball at will against the Cowboys to start the game, and they fumbled on their first 3 possessions. So they put themselves in a huge hole that they couldn't climb out of. But again, they actually outgained the Cowboys. So I think Dallas is a major fraud. Not that anybody thinks highly of Dallas, but for them to be only 3-point underdogs here against San Francisco, to me, is incredibly disrespectful to San Francisco. They are just so much better than Dallas at all phases of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that take. I like the San Francisco side for betting. Joe, I feel like this is a pretty interesting game for DFS. I think we might get a couple really nice smash plays on the 49ers with Brandon Ayuk and Jeff Wilson Jr. if Raheem Mostert doesn't go. And then on Dallas, everyone's so cheap. You can really pick whichever pass catcher you want. Do you have any interest in this spot?
Yeah, I like this game for mini stacks quite a bit because there's some cheap price tags. I think that Ayuk, I'll let you talk a little bit more about him because I think he's one of the best plays on the slate for sure at wide receiver. But I love Michael Gallup. He seems like he's been popping throughout the industry throughout the entire week overall. But if you just look at San Francisco, they're a lot more vulnerable against the intermediate and deep passes overall. They're the 29th best team in terms of yards per attempt against, but they've been pretty good against short area passes, second best at just 5.4 yards per attempt. So I think that definitely plays to the strengths of Michael Gallup. I think that he's a guy that's just drastically underpriced in this spot. So I think that he is super interesting. Another part of it is just the alignment in general. They really struggle against these wide receivers that are aligned on the wide kind of area, not necessarily in the slot. So some people are talking about Amari. Amari is still 43% in the slot. Gallup doesn't play in the slot at all. So I think that he's probably my preferred option on the Dallas side. I love the idea of Brandon Ayuk. And then obviously, as you guys see the thumbnail, it looks like we might get Pollard season if Zeke doesn't play.
Yeah, if Pollard opens up, man, he would be just an absolute smash at 5,200. I think I would have 100% Pollard in that case. Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm sold on Pollard is because he's one of those guys. To me, he's like the Chase Edmonds, where he has the pass catching role, and I think he ends up actually being even more valuable than the incumbent. Where if Chase Edmonds gets that backfield, I prefer him over Kenyon Drake with Chase Edmonds backing him up, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I just don't think Pollard's as good, and he's kind of pricey.
See, I actually think Tony Pollard's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Zeke can't run behind this offensive line, not like I'm saying Zeke is a generational running back. I think he's proven to be, kind of just maybe above average, but like Zeke has been trash. So if Tony Pollard became the chalk, I would be okay with fading that. The situation I want is no Mostert. He did return to practice today on a limited basis, but if Mostert's out, to me, Jeff Wilson is like the 100% type play.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I'm very excited about Jeff Wilson. I will say there's just way more variance in how Kyle Shanahan is going to use these running backs than there is it. Like if Zeke's out, we know Tony Pollard's going to get 18 to 20 touches. Like I would not be surprised at all if all of a sudden now we see McKinnon, work in and get, 10 to 15 touches. But I agree. I mean, last week, Jeff Wilson Jr., he played like 50-50 the snaps with Mostert. He was worked in the pass game, had 11 carries. So I think he looks very good. And we also know he's historically had that goal line role as well. So I'm with you on Jeff Wilson Jr. I hope he opens up, and I hope that news actually breaks pretty close to lock so the steam doesn't get moving on it. All right. So LaMarca, smartly got me to not skip over this 1 p.m. flex game that I had missed. Let's go to the Rams hosting the Jets, one of the classic situations. Rams 17.5-point home favorites. Have they made the line big enough to entice the sharps on the Jet?
No, if anything, the sharps are going the other direction. I think last week we talked about that Seattle spread a little bit. Like, what a gift from the gambling gods to get them laying less than 2 touchdowns. Now we kind of have to pay the full price. You have to lay the full 17, but the Jets are just anemic. I mean, their offense outside of that one fluke game against the Raiders has just been so bad with Sam Darnold under center. Like I said on the Tuesday show that Dwayne Haskins is probably the worst quarterback to start multiple games this year. It might be Sam Darnold. It really might. And I know that he's got his defenders. You know, if you want to say the Jets ruined him, that's fine. But like, he's ruined. Like whoever's fault it was, the Sam Darnold era is over in New York. I think that the Rams could cover 17 points by scoring like 27. So I think that, again, this number's probably too low.
Yeah, Joe, this one's so tough. I mean, I've tried to thread the needle. It's worked sometimes attacking the Jets. You know, the Chargers and the Chiefs got there. It's failed. You know, we've seen with these other teams taking the foot off the gas. Do you think that the Jets can keep it competitive enough for the Rams to hang a big number here? Or do you think it just gets spread around and it's a mess and they take their foot off the gas?
That's my concern. I definitely think that this Jets team is completely given up overall. So like that's the scenario where, yeah, Goff looks really good on paper. Obviously, he's a guy that does a lot better when he's not under pressure. The Jets have the 31st ranked defensive line in terms of pressure. You see Goff go from 4.7 yards per attempt while under pressure to 8.8 while not under pressure. So that all looks good. And then you just have to look at the other side and you're like, okay, what are they going to do on the other side anyway to make that thing happen? So Cam Akers on the other side, maybe, but then the Jets, like, say we want about this defense, they're not very good. They have been decent against the run. So we'll see if that ends up being part of this game that where I guess is the key storyline. I think it's probably late swap only for Jared Goff, even though the price is right and it is an amazing spot. This is the game overall that I can't see myself having exposure to unless I get a lot wrong in the morning.
Yeah. I am intrigued. I know Robert Woods was a little banged up this week. He's been on the injury report. I mean, Cooper Kupp, I think he's going to project very well. I mean, it just messes with my mind because every week I'm like, man, I feel like these, good wide receivers against the Jets should be, 15 to 20% owned. And then they're coming in, around 10% and under. And I'm like, I can't help myself, LaMarca. Tell me, look me in the eye, LaMarca, and tell me not to play these Rams against the Jets.
You need that. You need that Michael Jordan meme. Stop it. Get help.
I don't know if it is so hilarious. Like I have my spreadsheet, my very rudimentary spreadsheet. I pull in the team totals. I do conditional formatting to get the colors and it looks like a Christmas tree. The Rams 30.5 implied team total. The Jets 13.5 bright red points. I mean, it's disgusting. But man, I will tell you right now, I am going to have a Goff double stack with a Denzel Mims bring back. So help me God.
I think you don't overthink this one. Like I would just play Cam Akers. Like the Rams literally ran Cam Akers into oblivion last week. They gave him 29 carries in a game that they were very comfortably ahead for most of it. Like I don't think you have to worry about Darrell Henderson or Malcolm Brown stealing a ton of touches at this point. Like it's the Cam Akers show if last week was any indicator. So in this potential game script, if you're getting a running back who is going to get all the work, I mean, Akers had 29 carries last week. Darrell Henderson had 2 and Malcolm Brown had none. Like my word, just fire Cam Akers directly into my veins.
All right. Let's do it. There's the take. He wants Cam Akers. I'm worried about the Jets being a little bit of a pass funnel. I'd rather play the passing game. All right, let's move on here. Philadelphia on the road at Arizona here. Arizona 6-point favorites. What are we doing with this one, Matt?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. Arizona caught a little bit of steam early in the week when this number was a little bit lower. We tracked a steam move at 5.5, but now that it's up to 6.5, excuse me, it's pretty much just split down the middle, right? Philadelphia is getting a slight edge in tickets and a slight edge in dollars. Everybody wants to talk about Jalen Hurts. He was really good in his first start against one of the toughest defenses in the league. Arizona's no joke defensively, but they're certainly not the Saints. But I think the most important development is just that Kyler Murray looked like Kyler Murray last week. He was willing to run. He didn't seem like he was protecting his shoulder as much as he had been the past couple of weeks. And if Murray is back to being Kyler Murray, the Eagles have no chance to stop him defensively.
Yeah. And if Kyler Murray's back to being Kyler Murray at 7,000, he's grossly mispriced. I can't keep track of all your boots and which ground they're on. I know you have at some point been an Arizona Cardinals fan. It's really hard to keep track. Are you in on the
boots? Just one pair of boots currently. Don't
are
even
you
wear
in
a
on
belt.
the Cardinals
Beltless.
here?
Yeah. I love Kyler Murray in this spot. I think you guys said it. The fact that he's running more is what everyone wants to talk about, but also he looked a lot better as a passer, in particular to DeAndre Hopkins in this spot. So I think there's a chance that in this game, he does a little bit better at kind of buying a little bit of time and letting DeAndre Hopkins get down the field, which is kind of probably something we didn't see too much. Everyone wants to talk about the rushing yardage, but like the mobility of just him just running out of bounds or throwing it away, it didn't allow DeAndre Hopkins to get down the field. So it's another spot where on both sides of the ball, both teams are playing a lot of man coverage on defense. So both of these spots for the quarterbacks, I think, are super interesting. I think that Hurts is going to be popular again. Like if Hurts was to get to like 60 rushing yards again, he's just an absolute smash at this price point. This is like one of the best games on the slate overall. The problem with it is there's not a lot of great stacking opportunities for it. If you wanted to get really gross, I could see going to a guy like Ward with Hurts. I just don't really love any of the guys on the Arizona side outside of maybe Nuke. But what are you doing with this chalk running back situation with Kenyon Drake, Pete?
And Kenyon Drake is not one of my kind of guys. Like his role is good, right? 23 carries. He's getting all of the goal line carries, but he's been really inefficient. I mean, he got 4 green zone touches and he finally rammed one in. So like Cliff is stubborn with him and giving him carries. But he's just not the type of running back I want to play as chalk. LaMarca, where are you at on Drake chalk?
No, thank you. He's negative 0.54 correlation with Kyler, which makes a lot of sense when you watch, how the Arizona operates on offense. Like they don't throw him the ball. So if we really like Kyler, and I agree, I think that at 7K he's a really good play this week. Like that should take us off the Kenyon Drake chalk, in my opinion. But here's one thing I would like to propose. All right. To my co-hosts who love DK Metcalf, I will offer you DeAndre Hopkins for myself, DK for either one of you, more fantasy points this week. I get no line, even though Hopkins is the cheaper player.
So you just want what, straight up?
I want Hopkins points straight up versus Metcalf points. I think both guys are going to be pretty similar as far as ownership this week. Maybe Hopkins catches a bit more, but I think that if you want to fade the expensive chalk wide receivers, I think that Hopkins is the better play than DK Metcalf.
All right, so here's why I'm conflicted, because looking at the projections, Hopkins does project for more points. That said, I want LaMarca bucks. That said, I will never back down from an on-air bet. That said, I will not let my brand be tarnished and go away from DK Metcalf. What do you want? What do you want? $50 heads up? Metcalf versus Hopkins points. Do you want in on this, Joe?
I mean, just looking at it, like I don't know if I can put my money against the Cardinals as my brand, Pete. So I think I'm gonna let you guys battle this out, since that's pretty much what we've been doing anyways with that lineup debacle we did when you were just blacked out. But I can't put bucks against my Cardinals, man. That's just it's not in me.
All right, there you go. There's the bet. Please remind me of it, LaMarca, when DK Metcalf smashes, or just have some integrity and send it to me right away.
Absolutely, no problem.
All right.
I still have your Venmo from the last time you paid me.
Oh, I knew that was coming. My Venmo is open. All right. Kansas City, they're on the road in New Orleans, our final game of the main slate here. 51.5 over under. Kansas City 3-point road faves. Should be a great game here. Assuming Michael Thomas is good to go. What are the bettors doing here?
Yeah, I do think that Thomas is something to monitor, right? He's missed practice 2 straight days. It's not concerning when a guy sits on Wednesday. That happens all the time, but 2 straight, you start to raise your eyebrow a little bit. So if he is limited, I think that's a pretty big blow because that's the only guy that Taysom Hill has really had any sort of chemistry with. Like in a normal situation, you'd say whatever, he would just throw the ball more to Alvin Kamara, but Taysom Hill apparently doesn't know that Alvin Kamara plays on the same team as him. So I think that's a big deal. But ultimately, I do think that the Saints are kind of the correct side here. Like if you look in terms of DVOA, the Saints are the better team, right? They just because they're so much more well-rounded. Kansas City has that elite offense, but their defense is pretty abominable. And if New Orleans can slow down the Chiefs at all, they have no other way of like winning the game. The Chiefs' only formula for a win is we're going to put up 35 and you can't keep up. The Saints can win in a bunch of different ways. So I like getting them plus the 3 points at home, assuming, of course, that Thomas plays.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, Thomas seems like a big domino we want in this game here. Joe, obviously, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, they're going to be popular. Anything else you're liking in this game?
Yeah, I've loved Tyreek Hill. He's like the guy that, like, outside of Derrick Henry, I feel like could completely bury you in this spot. So obviously Patrick Mahomes is good against man coverage and zone coverage, but Tyreek Hill has been the one that's been scoring the touchdowns. So pretty similar volume for Tyreek and Kelsey, but Tyreek has six touchdowns against man coverage. So I'm interested in him. He's also just absolutely lapping the field in terms of like his deep ball touchdowns this year. 8 deep ball touchdowns for Tyreek Hill this year. Who's the next guy in line, Pete? He's got 4. It's your boy DK Metcalf. So that's a pretty big disparity in terms of some of these deeper touchdowns. And we're just looking at who's going to be covering Tyreek in this spot. Marshawn Lattimore, a lot of people want to talk about him being like an elite cornerback. I would say that he has not been. He's been a lot worse this year overall. He also is tied for the second most deep ball completions allowed with 7. That's a tough spot against Tyreek Hill overall. I have a hard time paying $8K for Kelsey, even though I understand that he's still very much in play in this one. I actually like Kamara quite a bit on the other side if you wanted to go really expensive with these stacks overall. I think that like Sean Payton's smart enough to understand that like his best player, one of his best players was just not being used the way that he can be successful. So I would imagine they kind of got in the lab a little bit with Taysom Hill and just tried to figure out the best way to get them involved in the passing game together, because last week we finally saw it. So I think that'll continue. I think that Taysom Hill, the price point is really interesting because if you look at Jalen Hurts, he's only $100 cheaper. So would you prefer Hurts or Taysom, Pete? I think that's actually a pretty big decision.
Yeah, we were talking about that exact one on the Swolecast earlier because my inclination was Hurts is going to end up being more popular. And I think they project pretty similarly. And I'm going to always take the lower owned guy at same price, same projection. So I kind of like Taysom Hill. But again, let's keep coming back to that. I think I'd probably change my tune if he doesn't have his binky Michael Thomas here. So LaMarca, where are you on Taysom Hill?
Like Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
I think that he's a better play than Hurts overall, just from a game script environment. Like, even if the Saints defense does slow the Chiefs down a little bit, right? Like you can't see a scenario where they score less than like 4 touchdowns, like 27, 28 points is probably the best that you can do. So New Orleans is going to have to score, and Taysom has been doing a pretty good job. I think my one take on this game is I kind of want to be underweight on it in general, with the exception possibly of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey. So 2 pretty big exceptions, but I think that like when you look at this game, it's got a similar total to some of the other ones on the board, but the fact that it's 2 marquee teams, the fact that it's in the afternoon, like I think it's just going to draw significantly more ownership than some of these other games that are floating around with similar totals.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is this one's interesting to me. And looking at Kamara's ownership right now here, under 10%. I mean, he had 10 targets last week. I mean, that's back to what he was getting with Drew Brees. So I definitely am intrigued at Alvin Kamara at 7,400 at low ownership. Joe, any final takes on this game?
Nope, I think that's pretty much it. I think this is the game that, like, if you wanted to get really weird and just like go with an expensive stack and kind of punt it off, like depending on your field size, I think this is the game that could kind of break the entire slate. Like in the dome, yeah, pending Michael Thomas, but I think I'm going to be really overweight on this game overall.
You know what I just got flashbacks, and this of course, complete narratives, but remember that late game in the dome last year between the Saints and the 49ers that went just absolutely bonkers?
Mm-hmm.
This kind of feels like that, doesn't it?
I think the only thing we probably didn't mention, and LaMarca may have touched on it, but I was sitting there watching Derek Carr just tweak his groin with no one around him. So I think that like the fact that both teams have a decent total, very tight spread overall. We don't have a lot of spots like this on the slate. We have some spots where there's just some pretty significant favorites, but not a lot of high total games where both teams are expected to go back and forth a little bit. So I like this game a lot, but I think the field is going to be on it. So you're just going to have to kind of get different with it in some way.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, the Chiefs are really hard to, they're expensive, they're popular. It's hard to know how to handle those guys, but yeah, you definitely want pieces of them. I mean, the thing that's interesting about the Chiefs this year, right, is that, before they'd been a little bit more spread out, and it is so condensed on Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce right now that they're almost to me like scarier fades than Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook.
I'm with you.
I mean, Kelce in particular, because when he has a good game, nobody else at tight end can match him.
No.
Are you guys buying the Kelce yardage leader narrative that Andy Reid wants to get that for him?
I kind of do.
Yeah, it's so hard to play both, and I'm just like, I don't know. I have a hard time being on the Chiefs in this spot and just avoiding Tyreek Hill. So I think Tyreek Hill is the one that I'm prioritizing. But I don't know. I just struggle with Kelce in general at that price. I struggled with Kelce when he was 7K, and he continues to bury me. So maybe that's bad.
All right, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. We will be back on Sunday morning to talk through the main slate again with more information, more injury news, more solidified ownership. We will get you guys all squared away. If you guys have it, I forgot to bully you guys to subscribe and to like. I'm off my game today. I should have done that when Joe went to the bathroom. We had two options. We could have bullied people into subscribing and liking the video, or we could have talked shit about LaMarca or about Holka, and LaMarca and I decided to talk shit about him while he was gone. So That's just what happened. So if you are still watching, please like the video. Please smash the subscribe button. We got the iTunes link down below if you'd like to get the audio version. We had LaMarca and Dieter and Joe talking about the betting slate earlier this week. You can check that out. And then the Tilt Space. We will be here Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Our buddy, our pal, our co-host, Michael Leone in the DraftKings World Championship, 2.5 million on the line. We're going to have our own lineups in some contests as well. It is going to be a super fun sweat. Definitely need to tune in with us and root Leone on as he ships 2.5 milli. Going to be a good time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good luck on your showdown slates tonight. We'll see you on Sunday.